This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And thank you for tuning to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss the latest and greatest news in all sports. And don't adjust your headphones, guys. Yes, it's Jeremiah. I know this is my first time doing the sports podcast. Ben is out today. And as always, I'm joined by...
And I am Anthony.
Yes.
Still here. And, yep, thank you very much for assisting with this. Yeah, Ben is out today. So, you know, we're still going to have the same kind of show, just a little bit different as far as one of the people here, but we thank him for being here. So, we're going to start off with Thursday Night Football and everything that happened with that. So, we had the Dallas Cowboys and we had the Minnesota Vikings. Second straight week of Thursday Night Football for both of them. Different games they played last Thursday on Thanksgiving, I should say. But while the game last week with the Dallas Cowboys was a very good game with the Washington Redskins, this game, not so much. This game was, okay, but we kind of reverted back to the same kind of terrible Thursday Night Football, low scoring, not that much offense kind of game, which I get people like defense in football. But as far as if you're looking for an offensive kind of game, that wasn't what you got here. You had Dak Prescott. He was 12 of 18 for 139 yards, one touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott had 86 yards rushing with a touchdown. Bryant led the Cowboys with 84 yards rushing. For the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Bradford was 247 yards passing and a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon only had 41 yards to lead the Vikings. And Adam Thielen had 86 yards receiving. So altogether, you didn't have a 100-yard rusher. You didn't have a 100-yard receiver. You didn't have a 300-yard passer. Offensively, wasn't the best, but we know with the Minnesota Vikings, they have a really good defense, and that was definitely on display last night.
Yes, it was. And, you're getting back to that, that Thursday night sloppiness that we're accustomed to seeing. Mm-hmm. Remember, these two teams had a week to prepare. So, no matter what, I kind of expected this game because, the Vikings have a tough defense.
Right.
And, we can't forget the fact that Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott are rookies. Even though Ezekiel Elliott had a pretty solid game yesterday, Dak Prescott probably had his second, maybe worst game of the season last night. And that was against a very, very sound defense, probably one of the best, probably top 5, top 10 in the league. Mm-hmm. But remember, the Vikings do not have an offense that can stay on the field. And they had a chance to tie it up late in the fourth quarter, and I thought they were going to tie it up, but then I remembered Sam Bradford is the quarterback.
Well, that's
There's
the thing.
No way they're going to tie it up.
Exactly, that's the thing.
He threw it like 10 feet above to Kyle Rudolph in the back of the end zone. I'm like, okay, well,
yeah. To be fair, he got hit in the head, so you could have called roughing the passer on that.
I kind of think that should have been called, in my opinion.
Yeah, so you could kind of go fall back on that. But at the same time, they had a 5-yard penalty before that to back it up a little bit. And now you had that penalty, so maybe that could balance out a little bit. There's still no guarantee that they were going to actually, make the 2-point conversion because, those are really hard to make in general. Now you get with the Minnesota Vikings, after starting off pretty strong, they're 6-6. They don't look like the same team as before. The defense still looked good, like you said. Like, it was the first time that Dak and Ezekiel Elliott actually had to go against a good defense because before they were facing kind of so-so teams, be it Washington or Green Bay or Cleveland, San Francisco, bad to medium defenses. And this is the first time they actually faced a defense that was really good. And if we're being fair to the Minnesota Vikings, yeah, they've lost a bunch of games now after starting off strong, after starting off 5-0, but the last 3 games that they've lost, they lost 17-15, 16-13, and 26-20. So they were all really close games. And even the one before that against Detroit, they lost 22-16 in overtime. So they've lost these games, but they've lost them at least close, and they're always in the game, which obviously is aided by the defense.
Yes, this defense does keep them in games, but the thing that has hurt them is that they can't run the ball. They can't sustain drives.
So bad.
They can't get plays down the field.
Right.
Because Sam Bradford doesn't scare opposing defenses.
No,
they know he's not going to throw it down the field.
Right.
And, I'm looking at the Vikings schedule here. They got the Jacksonville Jaguars next. They do got the Indianapolis Colts after that. Then they have their last road game at Lambeau to face the Packers. And then for the finale of the season, they play the Chicago Bears, which is a game they should win because Chicago Bears is probably going to get the second or third pick in the draft, depending how the Niners and Bears game looks like this Sunday.
All right.
You know what? The Packers are not as good as they used to be. The Browns are terrible. The Colts are an average team at best, but they could still win that division, which is because it's pretty bad in the AFC South. And the Jaguars, which have looked pretty bad. I think they still have a chance to go 10-6, but realistically, I kind of see them finishing between 9-7, 8-8.
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to be because you talked about how it kind of breaks down with Minnesota. I mean, yes, if you do look at it, some of the teams they're playing are bad. The Packers, I can see them having a good game, and the Colts by that time, I'm pretty sure Andrew Luck will be back. So you can see them possibly losing those 2 games just because the offensive firepower on both of those sides, because you saw Aaron Rodgers kind of become Aaron Rodgers recently, but, still not what we were expecting from him to start the year. But you can see at least those 2 games being bad. The Jaguars and Bears, they're bad. Jay Cutler basically went down for the rest of the year. Shoulder surgery, or with a bad shoulder yesterday. So, the Bears have been bad all season. The Jaguars have been bad all season. So, yeah, I can probably see more around an 8-8 thing. Like, I can see that kind of happening.
Yeah, okay. And then the Vikings, man, I think around week 5, week 6, we really thought that the NFC was going to go through Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
And we really thought they were going to have, they were going to be the first, second seed. That's not like that anymore. The Cowboys hold the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Right.
I think they are 2 ahead of the Seahawks for that seed. And I think they're 2 ahead of 2.5 now of the New York Giants in the NFC East, who they have next, by the way. So that's going to be a very important game. Mm-hmm. I can realistically possibly see the Cowboys finishing 14-2. I think the Giants or the Detroit Lions could be a possible game that this Cowboys team could possibly lose. But as of right now, it looks like this team just can't lose. You have to play a perfect football game to beat this team. You have to play really good defense. You can't turn the ball over on offense. You have to score touchdowns. You have to play really good special teams. You have to play the perfect game against this team. And this team looks really unbeaten. And they're about to play the only team that has beaten the Cowboys, and that's the Giants. But they did beat in week 1. This was when, Dak Prescott started having really good season. This is his first start. Ezekiel Elliott, he wasn't playing near the level that he was that week. So I don't think the Cowboys, I just feel like they're not going to lose another game. You have to play a perfect game, and there's just no way you can beat them. There's I don't know how to beat this team. How do you beat them?
Well, because here's the thing. So we basically figured out that, last night when they played a good defense in Minnesota, that Dak Prescott, yes, he's been doing really well, and yes, he's one of the best rookie quarterbacks, at least as far as handling pressure and handling all that stuff we've seen in a little bit, but he's still a rookie. When you throw him with a really good defense, it can be one of those things that he gets a little bit rattled. He had a fumble last night. He did have an interception, but he didn't look, he didn't even have 140 yards passing, right? It was one of those things where you can hypothetically get to him and rattle him a little bit. So with all that being said, that would be the thing to do. You have to get his defense that can rattle them. The problem that becomes is the teams that are playing, the Giants, Bucks, Lions, Eagles, aren't that, right? It's not like he's playing one of the best defenses. He's not playing in Seattle, right? He's not playing in Arizona. He's not even playing in Baltimore, which has pretty good defense. He's playing defenses that are...
He did play well against Baltimore earlier this season.
True.
Yeah.
So, but he's not playing that for the rest of the weeks, right? Giants, that's going to be a revenge game because that's a game where they could have won because Terrence Williams didn't run out of bounds.
That was a game they should have won.
Right, and that was only by 1 point. And since then, they're undefeated. They're 11-0, and they've been winning games close, be it 35-10 to the Browns or 27-10 the Ravens, are winning really, really close games like last night, like the week before that against Washington by 5, which kind of got closer at the end, but still was a close game, 29-23 to the Eagles. They've had these games where they were close and games where they're blowouts, so they can win either way. One thing you have to do is basically have to make Dak Prescott look not like a great rookie quarterback. You have to make him look like he doesn't fully know what he's doing against a good defense. I think the Giants can have a chance to do that because it's one of the things also where it's a rivalry game, right? So they all know how each other plays because, yes, Elliott and Prescott are rookies, but they played Dez enough times, and they know the offensive line and at least maybe have an idea of what to do to go against them because that game in week 1 was 20-19. So I can think that can be a close game. I think it's probably the best shot that the Cowboys have of losing one of the next 4 games because I honestly don't think they'll go undefeated. Like I'm with you, probably 14-2, something like that.
It's hard to win football games in this league. The fact that they won 11 straight is incredible in itself.
Yeah. And if you said beginning of the year, like forget everything we know now. Forget about, we probably knew Ezekiel Elliott would be a good running back. But, if you say to start the year, okay, without Tony Romo, because we didn't know his back was going to break basically before the year started. With a rookie running back who is really good, but still a rookie quarterback, with a rookie running back, quarterback, and would you have said they would have gone 11-1? I don't think anybody would have said that. So the fact that actually happened, you give all the credit to the rookies. I do think though you actually need a good defense to rattle them, and I think the Giants have the best chance of doing that this week or next week, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be next week.
Yeah.
But, it looks like the Cowboys are on their way to becoming the first seed in the NFC.
Oh, yeah.
And, the Seahawks are second at 7-3-1.
And they're kind of struggling a little bit. So we look at the games coming up this week, right? So we have the Atlanta Falcons against the Kansas City Chiefs. That'll be a pretty good game. Both teams are kind of hot recently. You got the Lions in New Orleans to take on the Saints. You got the L.A. Rams in New England to face the now Gronkless Patriots. The Broncos are going to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. The Texans are in Green Bay to play the Packers. You got the Dolphins heading to Baltimore to play the Ravens. The Eagles are going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Niners at Chicago to face the Bears. Buffalo is going to Oakland to face the Raiders. The Giants are in Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. Washington goes to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Tampa Bay Buccaneers head to San Diego for the Chargers. The Panthers are at Seattle to play the Seahawks. And Monday Night Football is the Indianapolis Colts New Jersey technically, to play the Jets.
Yes, a very good weekend slate of games. And
we get a reprieve from the Browns. They get a bye week finally. And
I know. But they're going to find a way to lose. I'm kidding.
No. We joked about this
hard.
because it's basically what's going to happen is Terrell Pryor. He's gone. Like he somehow gets hurt, kind of like tweaks his ankle or something like that. It's only down for like a week or two. Nothing big, nothing serious for an injury goes. But he's going to get hurt in practice. That is how you lose the bye week. You lose an important player because he's the only important player. Because everyone else on the team,
probably their best player on the team.
He's absolutely their best player because the whole team stinks. Everyone on that team, they all stink.
Wow.
Cody Kessler stinks. McCown
stinks.
Crowell stinks.
Okay. Cody Kessler is okay. He's only a rookie. Remember that. Cody Kessler is still a rookie.
That's fine.
But he's not going to be the quarterback of the future, I don't think.
Well, to be fair to Cody Kessler, yes, he is a rookie, and you throw a rookie. Like we talked about how Dak Prescott's good, but he also has that offensive line and all the stuff around him. Cody Kessler has the Browns offensive line. Outside of Joe Thomas, not the best.
Yeah.
Joe Thomas is doing all he can. He's just like, I got it. I did my job. What about the other 4? Oh, wow, there they all go. Oh, no, they're all running to the quarterback. Oh, they all messed up.
He's like, I'm holding the guy in.
I got my guy. Do you have your guy?
Gone.
No, you don't have your guy. You're running to the quarterback. Okay, cool.
It's like that South Park meme. It's like that South Park meme.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding my guy, and it's gone.
And he's gone. Right.
All right. Well, we're going to take our first break on that note, and we're going to talk about some college football. We have huge championship games tonight and this Saturday. So we're going to be talking about that here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. And we got a huge weekend slate of games in college football. It is championship week. It's a very important week for a couple of teams to vie for spots in the college football playoff rankings. We got one huge game tonight in prime time, but it all starts tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Western Michigan will go against Ohio in the MAC championship, and Western Michigan's probably going to win this in a landslide.
Yeah.
Western Michigan's offense has been really good. And I know they're in the MAC conference, and I know they're undefeated, and it is a weaker conference. But Western Michigan, they're actually a legit team. I think in a couple of years, I think we can actually talk about them, maybe possibly being a spoiler in the college football playoff. But I do think they're 1 or 2 years away.
Yeah.
I think we kind of touched on it a couple of days ago. We were talking about Houston in the football podcast, how they have kind of made a name for themselves for that program. We talked about Les Miles and Lane Kiffin. Those are really two big names to go to a group of 5 school. In Houston, they don't play like a group of 5 school, even though they have played in some games even though they have lost some games to weaker opponents, they're still a really good team.
Yeah.
So I would have to say Western Michigan, I might add. That I don't know what the heck I said.
You just did the dyslexia movement. It's fine. But no, you're right about Western Michigan. They're basically on the track of what Boise State was, right? Because with Boise State, it took them a year or two to basically get recognized by the committee. Like Houston, they got recognized by the committee, but they were in a big enough conference, and they were facing teams that were good and beating those teams, so where we kind of like recognized them right out of the bat. They were 15-1 last year. This year, if they had gone, undefeated this season, they would have probably been in the college football playoff because they would have faced Louisville, who had Lamar Jackson, so we kind of knew who they were. With this Western Michigan team, they're going to be undefeated probably to finish the year, and that's great. That's fantastic. Awesome for you. But you're never going to break that kind of like top 15 kind of mold, right? That's pretty much where they're probably going to be. Maybe they get into like 12 or something like that, but never top 10, right? I don't think they're actually going to get into the top 10. But if they could do this next year and the year after that, then you get the Chris Peterson thing, which we'll get to him in a second. But when he was at Boise State, the whole thing where it's just like, okay, if this team runs the table and goes undefeated, then all of a sudden you start giving them a little bit more love. Then all of a sudden you start looking at them more as far as a team that maybe can possibly get into the playoffs. I understand that wasn't the case when Chris Peterson was over at Boise State. They didn't have the playoffs. You did the thing where you had the BCS, but it was a thing where every year they got a little bit more kind of, what do you want to call it? Like, the world kind of realized them a little bit more as it went on. But with the Boise State, they always lost a game, right? It was like a 12-1 season in 2011, 11-2 season in 2012, 12-1 in 2010. They always lost that one game where it's just like, we can't do this for you. Like, even if we wanted to put you in the playoffs, there's other teams that have either 0 losses or 1 loss that we're going to put in there. But with Western Michigan, they're going to run the table this year more than likely, because if you go to the whole kind of ESPN predictor thing when you actually click on the actual school itself, it's over 90% probability that they're going to win the game, right? Which I understand, last night we talked about how Minnesota had the advantage over Dallas, but it's 91.3 for Western Michigan. It's a very good chance that they're going to win the game. So I'm going to go with Western Michigan. And what about yourself?
I'm going to go with Western Michigan as well, and we literally spent like 5 minutes.
I understand. No, you give
that's a lot more than I thought we were going to talk about.
They're 12-0. They're 12-0. They're a good team. You give them a little bit of love. Now we're going to transition. We're going to go to the other game. We're going to go to the Pac-12 championship game. We're going to go with the Colorado Buffaloes against the Washington Huskies.
This is a game I'm very, very excited for.
Well, this game actually matters.
It matters for playoff seeding.
Yeah.
And I talked about, Colorado maybe possibly entering the playoff rankings. It's a long shot because they do got Wisconsin.
Yeah,
they got Penn State, and they got
Colorado,
Michigan ahead of them.
Yeah.
All Big Ten schools that have played really well.
That's the thing.
So, Michigan doesn't play this week.
No.
But Wisconsin or Penn State are going to lose. So even if Colorado wins, they're going to have to win. Two things have to happen. They have to win handily against Washington. That's tough to do because Washington actually has a pretty good defense, which they don't really get credit for.
Because their offense is so good.
Exactly. And, I think and one of the teams are going to have to lose, which is probably going to happen. So basically, Colorado has to win this game very handily. And I do think Colorado can win this game. Colorado's a really good team.
I think they can win the game. I don't think they can win the game handily.
No, they can't win it handily. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
They're going to have to win it handily if they want a chance after the playoffs. But it's tough to jump from 8 to 4 in 1 week.
That's the thing.
It's really. I can really see them maybe jump from 6, but it's going to be tough for them to enter the top 4 spots. But
yeah, the hardest thing for Colorado to do is basically so they're 8th right now, and you got Penn State, Wisconsin, and Michigan. All you said, Big Ten schools ahead of them. And the problem with it is Michigan doesn't play, right? Michigan's off and Ohio State, they're both off. But you could tell when the committee, did this, they love Michigan. Like they want any excuse whatsoever to put Michigan in. They really want to do that. And also Wisconsin and Penn State. It'd be different if, let's say, it was Minnesota or Michigan, Wisconsin, and let's say Oklahoma, right? Let's say that was like a 5, 6, 7, right? If Wisconsin lost in the Pac-12 or in the Big Ten championship game, and if Oklahoma lost in their quote-unquote Big 12 championship game, whatever you want to call it, because it's a little bit different because there's not Western and Eastern conference with that, if both of them lost, then they're going to go down. The problem is Wisconsin and Penn State, obviously one's going to win, so they're going to elevate higher. And I don't think the committee wants to do a thing where, the number 8 leapfrogs past the 6 or 7 or the 5 seed, right? You kind of want to take the teams and slowly move them together. Like you don't want to have like leapfrogs and it's all of a sudden, well, we won too, and people are just going to yell, right? And the easiest thing that they can do is if Washington loses, then it's just like, oh, okay, Michigan, go back up there because the committee really wants to have maybe the potential of you would have if that happened. If Michigan went to 4, you have Michigan and Alabama. The committee loves that, and then the possibility of either Alabama facing Ohio State, Alabama-Clemson, which would be the rematch, or Michigan-Ohio State, again, kind of really close rematch, or worst-case scenario, Michigan and Clemson, right, which is kind of one of those things that we still got Harbaugh. It's all kind of good things for the committee as far as, like, what is the best for, like, a college football game, which I understand they're not supposed to do, but, I mean, we've kind of seen all year that they love Michigan and Ohio State. That's the teams that they love.
And it's a shame that Penn State and Wisconsin may not get any love from the committee because
to be fair, they lost 2 games.
They did, and I think that's the reason why it's going to be tough for them to get in, no matter what. Because I don't think the committee wants a 2-loss team in there.
Yeah.
And if you really think that Michigan is a better team, and they have 2 losses too, remember that now. And I do think Michigan is a better team than Wisconsin and Penn State, because remember, they beat them both.
Mm-hmm.
They did beat them both this year. They want the best 4 teams, and whoever is the best 4 teams, I do think it's Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Washington.
Yeah.
Right now, I wouldn't mind if Michigan happens to go back in the top 4 if Washington loses.
That's the thing.
If Washington loses tonight, I don't think they deserve to be in the top 4 spots. I don't think so. But, getting back to this Pac-12 game, I'll let you go first.
Well, no. I was saying that, you could even make a case for Oklahoma, right? Because Oklahoma,
you can. And I talked about that on the football podcast a couple days ago.
They lost to Houston and Ohio State, right? So it's one of those things of, they could really hypothetically be right there because, after that loss to Ohio State, which, justified enough, and Houston started off the year really strong. You've beaten a TCU team when they were ranked. You beat a West Virginia team when they were ranked. You've beaten these teams throughout the year since then, and they look a lot better of a team. You've won 8 in a row, and now we kind of Oklahoma looking like a really good team, but 2 losses, which I guess their 2 losses are better than technically Penn State's losses. Wisconsin losses are both Ohio State and Michigan, which are both kind of understandable if you want to go with those kind of good losses kind of thing. But you could say Oklahoma's right there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And getting back to this Pac-12 game, both of these teams are very similar. Colorado is averaging 34.8 points a game. Washington is averaging 44.8, which is one of the highest in the nation. Both of these teams don't allow many points as well. Maybe it's because their offense scores so much and they're on the field a lot.
Right.
That might play a part. But Colorado, I almost called them Buffalo for some reason because they are the Buffaloes. They only allow 18.8 points a game. Washington only allows 17.8 points a game. So they're a little similar, but I do expect Washington to come out on top, and I do think this is going to be one of the best games that we see of the weekend. The Pac-12 hasn't been talked about a lot as a whole conference because they have a lot of good teams in this conference that are ranked, and I do think Washington deserves to be in the playoffs, but they're probably going to be number 4, and I don't see them going past Alabama. Alabama is just too much of a team to handle, especially for a young Washington team.
Well, that's the thing. You talked about how that was one of the big criticisms or rationales that other teams would have facing them. You'd say if Washington went there, they'd get their face caved in, which fine, that might actually happen too. Also, that could happen if Michigan plays them. That could happen if Wisconsin plays them. That could happen if Oklahoma, Penn State, all these teams play them because, by the way, it's Alabama. Have you seen Alabama over the last, decade? They're really, really, really good. And I don't care who the linebacker is. I don't care who the running back is. I don't care who the quarterback is. Saban's still there. Saban's really good. And if you give Saban more than a week to prepare for you, he is going to just beat you down and make you sad and make your whole fan base sad and make your alumni sad and make everybody that ever was associated with that school sad. He's really good at that. He's, honest to God, probably, this is me coming from a Miami Dolphin fan, who he was there. I'm not leaving for college. I'm not leaving for the college game. I'm not leaving for college. He left for college. So there's a little bit of saltiness there. Fine. But he's legitimately probably the best college football coach of all time.
Yes. There's definitely an argument there.
Right.
Nick Saban kind of reminds me. I think he's kind of like college football's John Calipari.
He's better than Calipari.
Well, he's
college football's Dean Smith. He's college football's Coach K. He's college football's John Wooden.
The reason why I make this comparison is because look at how many players are in the NBA.
Oh, yeah, he just rotates dudes out.
What school did they come through?
Right.
They come from – most of them have been – the most successful ones have been from Kentucky.
Right.
The second best college that most of the recruits go to is Duke.
Right.
Football, you go to Alabama or an SEC school, maybe Big Ten school.
Right.
Those are mainly the big recruits that
even though we talk about Alabama with their defense, 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and Amari Cooper and Julio Jones, came out of Alabama.
And look at some of the running backs, NFL players in general. Look at Ezekiel. He came from Ohio State.
Right.
Really school that has produced top running backs throughout the past couple years.
Right.
They literally had 2 running backs going back-to-back years not back-to-back years, but 2 of the past 3 years, 2 of them are starters. You got Carlos Hyde at the Niners, and you got Ezekiel Elliott. I do think Ezekiel Elliott is probably going to be the better pro because Carlos Hyde is a little too injury prone. Look at Alabama. They produce running backs every year.
Ingram.
They got Mark Ingram. They got Derrick Henry, T.J. Yeldon, even Kenyon Drake.
Right.
Henry's backup.
Yeah.
He's a special teams contributor in the Dolphins. I do think he can be a really solid NFL player. So that's how I kind of make that comparison. Both of these programs, they produce a lot of talent for professional leagues.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the thing. Like, we also think probably if Alabama loses, they're still going to be a top 4 team, right?
Exactly.
Like, they may even be number 1. Like, if for whatever reason they fall to Florida, which you and I both don't think that's actually going to happen, but if they do, you lost to a top 15 school. Congratulations. You still get to make the playoffs because you still have one loss. And we love Alabama, and I say we, I mean the committee, love Alabama, love SEC teams. They're going to stay in there. Michigan or Ohio State, they're not even playing, so they're going to stay in the top. The only thing that could give any type of chaos is if Clemson loses, which potentially could happen. Virginia Tech's not a bad team. They won the Coastal Division, so they have a chance of beating them. And if Washington loses, and if those two teams lose, then it's just straight chaos. Then maybe Oklahoma moves up, maybe Colorado moves in. At that point, I'm assuming one of the 3 Big Ten schools, be it Michigan, Wisconsin, or Penn State, will go in there. Maybe both of them. Yeah. So at that point, it could be chaos. But I think I'm with you. I think we basically think that it's going to be Washington with the win. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Alabama stays. Obviously, Ohio State stays. And then Clemson versus Western. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Virginia Tech.
I want to, before we get to the ACC and Big Ten championship, we're going to talk about them very briefly here. I want to talk about I want to say the rest of the schedule this weekend. In the American Athletic Conference, we got Temple and Navy. I do think Navy's going to win that game very handily. We got a huge Big 12 matchup in Oklahoma State.
Right.
Going on the road at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to win that game. We got Baylor at West Virginia, and I do think West Virginia is going to win that game as well. And then we got the SEC championship, Alabama going against Florida at the Georgia Dome. I do think Alabama's going to win this one very handily. And then we got 2 primetime games at the same time. That's the ACC championship between Clemson and Virginia Tech and Orlando. And then we got Wisconsin and Penn State and Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. So we got 2 primetime matchups. I think we can agree that Clemson's going to win the ACC. If Clemson loses this game, they're probably out of the playoffs.
Yes.
I just can't. You can't justify that.
Right.
But since we agree that Clemson's probably going to be the ACC champion, I do the Big Ten championship game is a very tough game to predict. These 2 teams are very. I wouldn't say they're similar, but they're very tough. Penn State, I think, is the better offensive team, but Wisconsin, they're probably one of the best defenses in the country. They're number 6 for a reason.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get sold on Wisconsin, but the fact that they played Ohio State so close to the end, I really feel like even in a loss, they looked very impressive. I'm going to have to go Penn State in this game.
See, I'll just go Wisconsin because the reason I say that is because we talked about it when it was happening, right? At Michigan State, at Michigan, home against Ohio State, at Iowa, and then Nebraska, right? You had that slate of games, 5 straight games, and even LSU, you want to say week 1 when they were the 5th-ranked team. You had a stretch where 4 out of the 5 weeks you played a ranked team, and not even a ranked team, a top 8 ranked team at the time, because Michigan State, they've fallen off, and Nebraska's fallen off a little bit, but at the time, all 4 of those schools you played were ranked in the top 8 at the time. LSU was 5th at the time when they played. You played like this really stupidly, ridiculously hard schedule at the time, right? And you lost those 2 games to Michigan and Ohio State, but you lost 14-7 to Michigan on that freak interception, and you lost by 7 to Ohio State. They're really, really good at keeping the game close and keeping the game very manageable for them. And yes, I understand that Penn State has a better offense, and that's fine, but I would take the defense because their defense is just that much better, right? 22.8 points allowed for Penn State and 13.7 for Wisconsin. Their defense is a lot better. Their passing yards is less. They do have a little bit more rushing yards, so their total offense is a little bit closer, but that does go to Penn State more than Wisconsin. I would just think with that defense that they have and the schedule that they played, they're just ridiculous amount of good teams they played, because you can't say the same thing for Penn State. They faced Ohio State and Michigan, but outside of that, those are the only ranked teams that they've played the entire year. I mean, yeah, you get Wisconsin now who's 6, but before that, you didn't play a single ranked school outside of those two. So with that, considering how used to, or, however you want to say it, how familiar they are with playing ranked teams, I would go with Wisconsin. And
that's a very valid point. But it's don't get me wrong, both of these teams are very good. But I want to take Penn State because, even against those two ranked games, Michigan, I think if they play Michigan later in the year, that would have been a very close game. They did lose to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh beat Clemson. Right. Remember that. Mm-hmm. And then this is probably the third best team that Penn State is going to probably face. Yeah. Wisconsin has a very good defense, which is going to keep him in this game. But I do think Penn State is going to find a way to win this game late with their offense. But yeah, we're in for a very good, solid weekend of college football. I can't wait. I'm excited. And we're going to take our second break, Anthony.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're going to get into some basketball news, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to get into some NBA talk when we come back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We had a lot of football talk today, Anthony, and that was fun. But we're going to transition to some NBA talk here. And, man, I get to finally talk about some NBA for once here at the network.
Right.
But, man, oh, man, we had an incredible game last night in the Bay Area, and I will get to that. But I'm going to round out some of the scores from last night's action in the NBA. Charlotte was victorious over the Dallas Mavericks, 97-87. Charlotte had a really great game from Kemba Walker, 18 points. Harrison Barnes, on the other hand, has 17 for the Dallas Mavericks. Milwaukee wins 111-93. The Greek Freak, I don't know how to say his name.
Spell his name. Dare you. I dare you right now. Swear to God. Spell Giannis's last name. Spell Antetokounmpo.
Say it or spell it?
Spell it without looking at the screen.
I can't do that.
No. Look at me. Right here.
No,
right
no.
Here. Right
Don't
here.
make me do that.
Do it. I dare you.
Okay. All right.
Don't look at the screen.
All right. A-N-E-O-T.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
See.
It's fine.
All right. Well, they had a big A from the Greek Freak, 23 points. On the Milwaukee side, Brook Lopez was the highest scorer there for the Brooklyn Nets. Mm-hmm. And then Memphis wins by 1.95-94 behind a performance of Marc Gasol, who scored 25 points. Evan Fournier, or I should say Evan, don't Google Fournier.
Fournier.
Fournier. Don't Google it.
Have you done that actually?
I have not.
It's
I
bad.
I don't want
did
to.
It one time.
Oh my God! Don't tell me what it is.
It's gross.
Don't tell me what it is.
It's gross.
Because I still got 2 shows to do. I don't want to be grossed out and sick. But yeah, they had a good effort from Fournier from 28 points there on the Orlando side. And the LA Clippers defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers 113-94 behind a J.J. Redick, who scored a team high 23 points, and Kyrie Irving scored 28, the highest for the Cavs there. And then the Miami Heat and a narrow victory against the Utah Jazz, 111-110 behind Goran Dragic, 27 points. Gordon Hayward was the highest scorer for all players on the Utah side. Actually, for the whole game, for that matter, I should say. And then, man, what a game we had at the Oracle Arena last night. The Houston Rockets defeated the Golden State Warriors 132-127 in double overtime. James Harden scores 29 points for the Rockets. Kevin Durant was the highest scorer for the Warriors at 39 points. So, we had the top 2 dogs in the NBA, especially in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference, lost last night.
Yeah, so it's the thing with the Warriors is, they were going to lose at some point coming up because they were on such a hot stretch, right? After losing a couple of games at the beginning of the year, we kind of counted them out like, okay, cool, that's fine. You guys are going to lose some games. But, ever since then, they've just been rattling off these victories. They've beaten the Pelicans, Raptors, Bucks, Celtics, all these games. So they were going to lose eventually, right? And you had the Rockets, who you have the greatest combination of talented players and coaches that I've seen in a while with Mike D'Antoni and James Harden. And I'm not saying that, D'Antoni is like Phil Jackson to Jordan or anything like that. No. What I'm saying is their styles match because James Harden, fantastic offensive player. Just one of the best offensive players in the game. I don't think you can really argue that. Defensively, doesn't care about that. Just ignores it like it's the plague. Just like, nope, I don't want to do that. Please don't let me do that. I don't want to do that. And D'Antoni has never cared about defense. Ever. No. Do you remember those Phoenix teams? No defense.
His name should be Mike No D'Antoni.
He was one of those guys who...
Trust me, as a Laker fan, it was terrible to have him as a coach for that year and a half.
Okay, but that's not fair with the Lakers thing because you had Dwight Howard who had a messed up back. You had Kobe Bryant who refused to pass to anybody, just angry old Kobe, just like, I'm going to shoot the ball every single time.
Hey, don't talk about Kobe like that.
I mean, did you watch his last season?
I did.
Did you watch his last game?
I did.
Do you remember that last game?
I
do remember that. He had 60 points on 100 shots. It's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Okay,
but my point is, Kobe's a legend. He's the second best shooting guard of all time, a top 5 player of all time. He's one of the best ever, but also ball hog. Now, with the Rockets, you have the two combination of great offense, forget about defense, which you saw 132 to 127.
Yeah, just look at their star player, James Harden. He doesn't play defense at all.
By the way, they shot 44 threes. 44. That's a lot.
That is.
They had 108 shots all total, so nearly half of them were threes. And, James Harden was 2 of 11 from 3, but he doesn't care. He's going to keep shooting. He doesn't care if he misses 9 of 11. Still going to shoot. Got that J.R. Smith in him. But you had Eric Gordon going 4 for 9. You had 5 of 10 from Ryan Anderson, which, by the way, Ryan Anderson is the perfect player for D'Antoni also because he's a guy that's just going to basically not camp out the three-point line, but if you need to stretch 4, he's a prototype. He's the best at that right now, considering players like Dirk and them don't. Dirk's older. But you had on the other side with the Warriors, you had Draymond Green, who almost had a triple-double, 1 assist away from a triple-double, but also had a couple steals and a block. Durant, 39 points, 13 assists. By the way, I should probably mention that James Harden had a triple-double.
Yeah, he did.
That part kind of matters.
Yeah, no, he did. And man, what a year that James Harden's having.
James Harden is going to contend for MVP. Like, he's not going to win.
But I don't think he will. I do think...
Coach of the Year is probably...
I think it's honestly...
It's Westbrook or James.
I think it's Westbrook.
It's Westbrook or LeBron, depending on how...
The way that Westbrook has put the team on his back is just incredible.
If Westbrook becomes the first player since 1962 to average a triple-double in a season, they're going to give it to him because that's
they have to.
Insane of a stat not to give it to him.
If Westbrook ends up averaging a triple-double, which I think it's really hard to do.
Well, it's really hard, but
I wouldn't be surprised. Look at the way he's on fire.
Well, no, and that's the thing with Russell Westbrook. Like, yeah, it's really hard to do, obviously, because no one's done it since Oscar Robertson in the 60s. But through the first 20 games of the season, he's actually doing that, 31 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. And if you look at it, he's been, averaging that same thing over the last few games. He's been doing the whole, almost 30 points, 15 rebounds, 13 assists kind of games. But, yeah, if he gets anywhere close to that, I think he's going to get that. Or if LeBron basically decides in... let's call it January, where he's just like, oh, I need to do something well. Okay, and then he kicks it into second gear because he's basically allowing Kyrie, like you saw last night, 28 points for them, even in a loss. He's allowing Kyrie and Kevin Love to kind of establish themselves, and he'll just kind of be in the background, still averaging about 28 and 8.
Yeah, and don't forget that loss to the Rockets snaps a 12-game winning streak, I believe, that the Warriors had. But that concludes our show, Anthony.
Yeah,
we got to get out of here and not get out of here, but we got to get going on our other shows here at the network.
Yep.
But I'd like to thank you guys for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, and the show will be back on Monday. I will not do the show. I don't know when the next time will be, but hopefully it will be soon. I actually had a lot of fun doing this show, even though it was mostly football.
Right.
I would love to talk about more NBA, college basketball. Hopefully the boss is listening here at the network. But, I had a great time talking NBA with you, Anthony.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Because we're going to talk about football more later today. But, as always, I thank you guys for tuning in. And I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And Sports Podcast. We'll be back next week, folks.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.